Everybody knows Nepal, where it is, and I have in the audience several students doing PhD, postdoc research here in Hawaii, and some other professionals from Hawaii, Nepal, and many of you, of course, you know where Nepal is. So I don't need to really locate where Nepal is. And probably everybody knows these three main physiographic regions, Terai, Mid-Hill, and the Himalayan region in Nepal. The Mid-Hill region is basically the heartland of Nepal, where the largest number of populations, their livelihoods, everything came up from that region. And as a matter of fact, the unifier of modern Nepal also comes from the Middle region, King Prithvi Narayan Saha. So this region has its own significance in terms of modern Nepal, as well as geographically extended from about 600 meters above sea level all the way to 5,000 meters from the sea level, gives such a diverse agro-eco regions and farming systems. And also within that terrain, that includes valleys, foot slopes, slopes, summits, where people have been living there for thousands of years and evolving their own system of growing food, cultivating land, raising families. It in itself has been evolved into a very unique smallholder farming system, which is basically a system that has very intricate relationship with forest resource, with families, livestock, land, natural resources, and everything in a very, I would say, that delicate balance. The system keeps on running. And with recent changes on many, many things, including population growth, new modern way of living in the cities, or looking for jobs, this fundamental system of Nepal for livelihood has many, many challenges, as you can see, which the balance is tilting towards more unsustainable path. And on top of that, with existing anthropogenic regions or some other regions that involves with some political unrest or any other regions that involves out-migration, climate change has come on top of that as a major factor impacting this very delicate and very important system in the middle region, which is smallholder farming system. The climate change, just as an example, this glacier, Sorong Himal, if you see the upper diagram, from 1978 to 1999, you can see a significant change in the total area of this glacier, whereas in the picture in the bottom, the B section, that shows the total area reduced, as well as the terminus retreat of glaciers within this time frame. So this change on this glacier's area and the front is not just unique to this particular glacier, but out of that 3,300 glaciers that Nepal hosts, many of the glaciers are going through the same sort of impact in recent years, and their consequences are very devastating. And this is just one example of how the impact is seen very visibly in Nepalese Himalayan landscape. With this, I'm going to present my talk today with very, very comprehensive, very broad objectives, which include assessing vulnerabilities of the mixed farming production system to climate change in the middle region, also identifying factors associated with the decline of livestock production system, assessing impacts of climate change on water resources, building community capacity for climate change, and make some policy recommendation. So this project came out of USAID Livestock Climate Change Collaborative Program, LCC CRISP, Collaborative Research Support Program, as a seed grant. Yeah, we got this grant at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and we started this project in June 2011 and ended up in January 2013. So today, what I am presenting you here is not a whole lot of money. The total budget was around $80,000, $64,000 coming from USAID and another the match from the university. And in terms of time, it is about 18-month project. And to start with, our major focus was on taking this system as a very complex system to understand. And as complex system entails many complex issues in it, and these complex issues requires multiple methods to understand. So farming system studies require very, very comprehensive, qualitative, quantitative front, and many different aspects to understand very correctly, and then come up with some future scenarios, research directions, or policy recommendations. Keeping in that mind, we laid out our strategy for research that has to be focused on certain locality. And we realized that having some community groups directly engaged with us in understanding will make us more productive and more knowledgeable in terms of understanding system. And also, then we design our research in different front, from focus group discussions to participatory rural appraisals to full-fledged household survey to understanding very clearly about the water quality, or doing sampling for soil analysis, or fecal analysis, or doing a spring survey to assess the impact of climate change on water resources, fodder analysis, feed analysis, anything that relates to these farming systems. We try to go into that depth to understand biophysical, socioeconomic, and institutional setting of this micro watershed to have more understanding of what is going on there. For that reason, we pick up this Thulokhola watershed near Devigat in Nuwakot, which is a Trisuli river at the bottom. Over here, Trisuli river, and this red is a road that goes to Devigat and Bidur in Nuwakot, and this watershed has 580 hectares with 359 households, and the elevation of this watershed ranges from below 440 meter at the Trisuli river to all the way to 1,585 meter above sea level. So in this watershed, before we picked up this as a final watershed for our in-depth study, we did several project partners meeting in Kathmandu with our stakeholders from Nepal Agricultural Research Council, from Department of Agriculture, Agricultural Development Bank, and many other stakeholders at different level, and having animal science division, and it was a very broad collaborative platform to conduct this research. And we did our reconnaissance visit of the watershed with 7 or 8 scientists of different background in June 2011 to understand better before we finally come up with our research design. And as you can see in the watershed, this livestock was the main focus for our study. And we immediately find out these goats so sick. And across the watershed, the animal health, animal conditions are so terrible. And we kept that in mind. As a result, we started focusing on even more in-depth study on this animal system. And we found out the variation on those animals and living conditions, as well as some crop across these 3 elevations. So we divided this little watershed into 3 elevation levels for focused study. Now, after finalizing the research plan, we went back again to the community, and we formed 9 community livestock groups across these 3 elevations. 3 groups in each elevation, and there were 26 male and 25 female members in our groups. So we were very, very careful to engage the women and different groups, educated or not having access to education, and every different types of members from the community. And these groups, they had a training on water quality monitoring, livestock record keeping, and also we explained them what project we are going to do. And once they went through these 2 days of training, we handed over water quality monitoring kit to these community groups. And then also we had record keeping form developed, and we handed over to them so that these community livestock groups will start monitoring surface water quality of the watershed by themselves. So this water quality monitoring, we provided these test kits. They have specific tablets to put in the water, and based on the color, they come up with different water quality parameter across the watershed that involves fecal coliform bacteria, pH, dissolved oxygen, phosphorus, and nitrate, nitrite, and turbidity. Similarly, the record keeping book we developed and we handed out to each of those members. We wanted to have data on how much fodder and feeds they feed to their animal, the time they feed, how much feed is wasted. So these all parameters we wanted to collect from them, and we had 2 members who will visit in a weekly basis on those groups member and make sure that the data collection is there. One of the objectives we have in our mind is that to engage the community in terms of data collection, understand the process, and then make a kind of a truly participatory, collaborative project in understanding this climate change impact. And to calculate how much dry matter these animals are taking or consuming, these are the different dry matter content, percent waste. This is the dry matter content here for different fodder and forages, or estimated percent waste, and average body weight of these animals. They are in the watershed. We got them from the watershed to make our data to look at some meaningful information down the road. And we did another training because in the goat production and management, we realized goat was a major issue in the watershed. And over here at the bottom, we trained the community to have this PMATSA card. By looking at the goat's eye, they assess how anemic is the goat. And then if it is anemic, then they go out and get drug against those parasites and feed to their goat. It turned out so successful that we gave them this PMATSA card, everybody loved it, and they started monitoring their goats right away. And we also taught them how to formulate feed for their animals based on the local resources available. And it was really fascinating. We visited again in January 2012 with scientists from University of Georgia, University of Louisiana at Lafayette. And the research team was so nicely welcomed by the local community in the watershed. And right here, I have Dr. Griff Blakewood, who passed away in 2014, and we dedicated one research article, Vanishing Springs in the Mountains of Nepal, published in the Mountain Research and Development Journal recently in 2017 to Dr. Blakewood. And with this, we conducted 6 focus group discussion, very organized meeting with the community livestock groups. And the questions on these focus group discussions were from their animal production all the way to water resource use, to climate change adaptations, policies, financial assistance, women workloads, everything. And these discussions were recorded in double, and they were transcribed, synthesized, analyzed, and information was used in our final products. Also, as a part of our capacity building, there was a farmers tour organized for those local communities to bring them to Gorkha, where one entrepreneur has set up a dairy with these improved cows. So it was very interesting part for the local community to see how dairies are managed in a modern setting. Also, this household survey, to understand even better, we did this 97 household survey with a fairly long questionnaire, almost 1,500 variables, 97 households, but it was very, very comprehensive household survey with 7 master's students from Tribhuvan University. We trained them as an enumerators. We did the field testing, and the survey was naturally very comprehensive, but it was very, very helpful. Then participatory rural appraisals were done at 3 levels in each elevation to gather more information. Spring survey, 41 springs were visited and were characterized in terms of their geology, hydrogeology, the current status as a water source for the community. Fecal samples, 1,467 fecal samples were collected from buffalo, cows, and goats in 1 year time. And these samples were analyzed for helminthes, major gastrointestinal parasites. Fodder and feed samples, 68 fodder samples, 15 corn feed samples. They were analyzed for basic nutrients. Also, the cow pie analysis, looking at the cow dropping, how good or how fibrous food or how nutritious feed they have been fed. They were analyzed based on the cow and the droppings, and the body scoring of the cows were done with established technique to correlate the feed quality, their droppings, and how their body mass is. And soil samples, 96 random composite soil samples were taken from 3 elevations, and they were analyzed for pH, organic matter, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and soil texture, in addition to 41 core samples for bulk density. Then there were trainings done for non-community livestock group also. The demand came, why you work only with this community livestock group? We also like to participate. There's the rest of the community, they approached us, and we hosted this the workshop for them. And at the end, we analyzed, we hosted this village animal health worker training to to have 6 village animal health worker, 2 from each elevation. They completed 12 days training and got certificate from Animal Science Division, Nepal Agricultural Research Council, and they serve as the village animal health worker. So that was our part of capacity building. So with this framework now, I'm going to present you some results, what we found from there. Well, first of all, the smallholder farming systems that means there are, on an average, 8 or 10 animals, largely goats, maybe 6, maybe 1 or 2 cow, 1 or 2 buffalo. And if you look at the land holding size, they might have less than 1 hectare or 2.5 acres of land in most cases. And the family-wise, they will have 5 or 6 family members in that setting. This is a smallholder farming system, basically. And within that setting, our question was, what factors are really associated with the farm level variation of those smallholder farming systems, communities? And with the survey data, taking this 23 variables and doing those principal component analysis and factor analysis, it turned out very clearly that in the upper elevation, the major factors that differentiate those communities or those producers involves irrigated land, number of cows, forest products, how much they utilize, or farm fodder products or trees, how much they have, how much family labor they have in the house, and how much income diversification they have. So these are the key factors that really governs those farming system. In other words, what forages, what fodders they have, and how much labor they have, how much land they have, and what different type of income activities they have in the community. That differentiate them across these 3 elevation levels in general. Now, from this point, by looking at those data sets and doing some regression analysis on predicting the number of animals that a household has in the community, it turns out that the land, irrigated land or non-irrigated land, or their forest on the private land are the major factor in addition to family labor. And interestingly, this variable, this is the number of water sources that a household is utilizing, stands out as another major variable. So these smallholder farming systems are now very directly dependent on the water resource in the mid-hill system there. So water is a major factor, and what is the situation of this water in that watershed? If you look at the data now for Nuwakot districts, from since 1985 to 2010, there is tremendous decline in annual precipitation. For example, the total annual precipitation data here, in 2000, there was almost 2,500 millimeter rainfall. By 2009, it has 850 millimeter rainfall. In a watershed, when you have 2,500 millimeter rainfall and it comes down to 800 millimeter annual rainfall, and a system like this that is intricately related with agriculture, forest, animals, drinking water supply, you can think about what kind of situation it creates there. And if you look at the monsoon is shrinking. There is delay, at least 1 month of occurrence of the monsoon, and monsoon is finishing quickly. Weekly maximum precipitation is also declining the same rate. So there is simply no enough rain. And how the rivers are showing that. Thulokhola is a nearby river that has a gauge for discharge measurement, which is not directly fed by the Himalaya, although some discharge could be from snowmelt during the winter. But if you look at this discharge on Thulokhola, it is also going down significantly over the time. So that means simply there is no water in the watershed for recharge. And if this continues, this trend continues for another 10 years, the situation could be really a big crisis there, just water limited. So now looking at those data sets on water resources based on the survey, clearly those households in Thulokhola watershed, those who were using 5 or 6 water sources back in 20 years, they are limited to less than 3 water sources now. So rest of the water sources, they are gone. They dried. So this issue is so much pervasive across the watershed. Simply, watershed is starving, is thirsty for water. And now, from our spring survey, out of 41 springs that we surveyed, 12% of springs that we surveyed have completely dried out. 75%, almost 73% of springs that we have surveyed have significantly reduced the flow. 85% of springs in the past 10 years have either dried or significantly reduced discharge. What does that mean to this farming community, to the watershed health? And based on our hydrogeological study, we came up with this model. And there are 3 types of springs in this watershed. On the top, there is a local spring, which is basically depressional spring. In a just depressional area, water comes out. And in the middle, you have a contact springs meeting metamorphic rock and on consolidated material. In between these two, there is a contact, and you get a spring from there. And at the bottom, this is a regional spring in the sense this comes right after the fracture of the rock. And this regional system collects water for millions of years or thousands of years in the system and lets the water come out. As a result, these regional springs or fracture springs, they have a constant flow. They are not dried out, but they have a small flow. The middle one, contact springs, they are the best flow. They have bigger flow, they are the good one, and the local springs on the top, they are dried out. So now with this hydrogeological findings or model, which is already published in our Vanishing Springs manuscript, we can see that water shortage is clearly a major trigger there. And those communities, they have set up this water system, and they have been waiting for hours to collect these little pots for their household use. And this picture on the left, that shows a contact springs, and there is not much water left there. So it's not only the amount of water a limitation. Water quality is also a problem there. For example, fecal coliform across the watershed, based on this CLG members monitoring, all of samples were positive on fecal coliform. And dysentery, diarrhea, some other diseases, stomach pains, and everything definitely comes through these water issues. And there are no measures now how to keep these waters clean from those fecal coliform contamination. And similarly, some other phosphorus, nitrogen issues are there, but pathogen is the major thing. Now, in terms of animal health, 54% of goats have helminthes or parasite in their stomach, 54%. 31% cows, and 23% buffalo. So these animals are always living basically with the nematodes, with the parasites in their stomach, and that relates to their overall productivity, their body mass gain. And how does that infestation of helminthes or parasites behaves with the month? We found out that goats have high infestations from January all the way to April, whereas cows and buffaloes have infestation from August through October. What makes that difference? August through October, more humid, more high temperature situation perhaps, and goats from January through April, they are grazed outside and they pick up the bugs. And the egg counts per gram of fecal matter on goat on the lower chart also shows the eggs of those helminthes found per gram of fecal mass almost to the same level. So major parasites detected for buffalo, cattle, and goats were largely trematode and strongyles and tapeworms on goats. And we found out that 22% of goats' mortality. There were families saying, I have 10 goats died in last year. Almost every family has said, I have 1 or 2 goats died. And what we found out down the road, it was largely this PPR, Pes des petits ruminants, a viral disease that is very infectious, and animal die very quickly through the PPR. In addition to other diseases, the PPR was very common on goat, and people were really, really losing a lot of money from just by the goat death. Now, in terms of nutrition, we look at those records kept by the livestock, community livestock groups. Although it seems like that just we trained these community livestock groups, they kept the record, and how scientific the data will come up. Well, that's where really we focused on. Just we gave them the weighing machine, they weigh it, they put it there, they weigh the waste, and then we work on the data. And we found out our data on the column dry matter intake very, very comparable with any literature published data. And this data set shows here, in the month of January, if you see rice straw, wheat, and green maize, these are the major feed: rice straw, wheat straw, and corn stover, all high in fiber, less in nutrient, roughages only. So what kind of animal health we expect from this kind of feed? However, the local fodder trees, they are there in the watershed, are very promising. They have very high nutrient, they are palatable, they are fairly digestible. But these trees, the population of these trees, if you see, we found hardly in the range of 8 to 15 trees per household, small and large. They are not enough. And one thing is very clear here, very interestingly, many people thought these 3 species, Ficus cunea, Ficus hispida, and Litsea foliantha, as the major feed, and the farmers prize them. But what we found is that this Ficus hispida, besides Ficus hispida, the other 2 are not really good because of this nutrient, neutral detergent fiber is very high on them. They have less digestibility as compared to that Ficus hispida. So the notion of those, I have great farm trees in my farm and I feed it to my lactating cows or buffalo, has to be changed. And the data set that we saw really helps them, in that regard. And there are months when they have very severe feed shortages. And during these months, any cow or goat or buffalo, pregnant or growing, if there is a feed shortage, it directly impacts their life cycles there. With the cow pie analysis, if you look at the picture on the left, this pie shows the animal was fed with very high fibrous feed, like straw, so it has grooves and rings in the pie. But this on the right was fed with very nice, digestible, succulent, young leaves, so it is a better pie in terms of nutrition. But this cow has higher body scoring than the Jersey one on the right. So it doesn't mean that if you have a good cow pie on one day means that cow is healthy forever there. It happens that maybe previous night or day this cow was fed with good feed. But one thing what we found here is, although the feed and nutrition seems very, very poor, but the body scoring of this animal did not show that, did not correlate very well. For example, these brown cows on the left. So what is there? The animals they seem healthier than they are fed. The reason is this. These households, they cook animal feed with their leftover rice, leftover vegetables, leftover, or their wheat barn, or some corn stalks. They cook it, and every day they feed the cooked stuff to their animal, which doesn't come to this picture of our assessment. But these livestock, they are really struggling despite this cooking food and feeding them, their body mass index. Pastures, if you see there are little pastures in the bank of Trisuli River. These cows are really grazing there. Maybe they don't know when they will be swept away by the river. When they go there and graze day long, and that little green land there will be disappear, maybe in few years. So the pasture land is being shrunk due to many reasons. The cows and goats are placed on a very, very unhygienic situation. And the feed supply is very limited. And that has severe impact on animal productivity and health. The same thing goes with land degradation. By looking at the land and the crops grown there, these soils are organic matter poor, less in nutrient, lot of erosion, and crop productivity is very, very low. And which is reflected by the testimony given by those focus group meeting. Clearly they are saying that their land, whether it's non-irrigated or irrigated land, it is losing soil physical properties or chemical properties or fertility very, very fast. They are turning more shallow and they cannot grow crops, and the exposed subsurface layers is coming up. And based on our bulk density sampling, we found out very compacted soils. Very compacted when you see bulk density 1.63, 1.7 gram per cubic centimeter. That tells that the soils are quite compacted, and that restricts root growth and is a concern. And in terms of the soil pH, almost 52% of the soils that we analyzed there had less than 5 soil pH. 20% of the soil samples we found less than 4.5 soil pH, especially in the irrigated land. That means the soils are so terrible in terms of crop productivity, and farmers know their rice productivity has gone down. They know their corn production has gone down. And they also know their potato is doing better. Yes, potato thrives acidic soil. But their main crops are not performing very well. So in this context, what farmers are perceiving about climate change impacts, we can categorize this perception in at least 4 different categories. One, let's say, climate-related, weather-related. Farmers are very careful. They know that drought is a problem. There are erratic rain events, patchy rain events, winter temperatures are low, summer temperatures are high. They know that. And also in terms of animal health, another category, they know they have new and emerging diseases on their animals. They know their animals are starving for feed. There are many animal deaths occurring recently. Or they also know that soil is degraded. And also they know that water resources are disappearing. So what they are doing to overcome these challenges in terms of water resources, they are setting up some tanks, some pipes, bringing water to their localities, or they are traveling more to wash clothes, or cutting the water supply to their livestock, for example, or doing not irrigation, getting out of vegetable production. And in terms of animal health, what they're doing, they are going to vet or go to get some drugs, medicine for animal, or they are trying to cut down the number of animals. And in terms of agricultural production, they are using improved variety now to adapt. They are buying chemical fertilizer to adapt to climate change impacts. But still, the yields are declining. Poor animal health is still there. And delayed pregnancies on cattle, goats, and there is also a problem. And in order to do that, they hold animal for a certain time, or they sell their goat and buffalo to slaughter. So what we found is that there is a very fine adaptive responses to climate change, very fine adaptive responses to climate change by the communities, which is in the order of least response to the greatest. Animal health and animal breeding is the toughest thing for them to handle, which is followed by soil fertility management, another toughest thing after that, animal health. Then followed by landslides and flooding, followed by deforestation and forest degradation, followed by declined crop yields and crop production, and water shortages. So in other words, community is tackling water shortages the first thing, because that's the first thing. Without water, no animals can live around there. No human being can live around there. But there is a continuum of this adaptation. And animal health is the toughest one for them to understand and to adapt. And we organized this total vaccination of these goats, 2,968 goats. In 2 days, everybody brought the goat. We taught them how to vaccinate them against PPR. And then everybody vaccinated these goats. And for 2 years, once you vaccinate, they will be immune to PPR. And what impact we got? The CLG members, the members, they were associated with us from the beginning. They were the adapters in terms of feed production or in terms of anemic scoring and then taking care of their goats. But non-CLG members, those who were not tied up with us from the beginning, they are not at that level for adaptation or using these technologies. So this message is very loud and clear. If we want to make a rapid change, we need to embrace these communities and work with them. One of the CLG members, he proudly says, I have the same amount of work, but I have a khasi that weighs 40 kilograms, worth 20,000 rupees now. This khasi, which is castrated male goat, would have been dead or died due to PPR. but now they are happy. And this project had significant impact in terms of households benefiting from the project, or livestock producer adopting new technologies, policies, individual who received project training, and etc. And in conclusion, I will say that the weather, climate, drought condition, erratic rain events, all these kind of things, weather-related phenomena, they are severely impacting this smallholder farming system. And in addition to that, there are emerging diseases, parasites for their animals, delayed pregnancies, estrus condition, repeat breeding. So many problems are there which relate to feed and nutrition and overall health, as soils are turning more acidic, compacted, and water resources are disappearing from the local communities or the watershed. However, there are hopes, there are opportunities. One, there is a possibility of conducting a comprehensive research on watershed or water resource rejuvenation. Watershed scale spring rejuvenation initiatives, it is possible. And it has been proved in India and Sikkim. And also there are opportunities to do some agroforestry intervention or groundwater recharge, rainwater harvesting, working with the communities for capacity building, and with the government agencies, local governments, and everybody. After all, the resiliency of a smallholder farming system revolves around landholding size, animal health, fodder and forages, forest resources, farm level, water sources, crop productivity, policies, etc. And with this, I'd like to acknowledge that this research was made possible by the United States Agency for International Development and the generous support of the American people through grant number EEMA 0010-00001. I'd like to extend my thanks to all local communities, researchers who participated in this research, and also volunteers, lab technicians, everybody who worked hard, and that led into our success of this project. And all what I have talked here, presented today, are already published on these 4 literature. So if you like to have them, both articles, they are freely available. And other 2 articles, the third one, that was the paper presented in 22nd International Grassland Congress in Sydney. No, the 4th one here, the last one was in International Grassland Congress. The 3rd one here was in the Global Animal Nutrition Conference in Bangalore. So these are pretty substantive, reviewed articles, and all this information you can find there. If you have any question, please let me know. Again, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to present our research here in a place which I had been dreaming for my life, East-West Center. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Durga, for a very interesting presentation. I have heard many, many talks by social scientists about issues in Nepal. I think you're the first livestock person or soils person I've heard speak. The social sciences are a dime a dozen. You don't get many talks on soils and livestock. I do have some questions for you, but I know other people do too.
Sure.
Is that on? That was super. I've done a lot of work in this area in Africa, and one of the issues when you get a situation like this in East Africa is population change, both human and livestock, and I wonder what the trends have been in that way. Are you getting in this greater instance of disease, it's very poor nutrition? I know a lot of it's the lack of water and so forth, but are you also getting more animals on smaller land, more crowding. I wouldn't think that would be the case.
Well, the population dynamics is affecting this way. The children, they go to school now. The smallholder farming system evolved with the family labor. And as our principal component analysis also showed, family labor is the major factor that governs this system. So with children going to school and also out migration of those local people for jobs somewhere else, the shortage of labor is the fundamental thing right now in driving this system. Now, the overall population growth, yes, in the city there is more population growth. That is an opportunity for now for this smallholder farming system, if done rightly, because more people go to city, that means there are more mouths to feed on. And those local people have opportunity to grow, for example, fruits, for example, vegetable, for example, milk, chicken, everything, and just bring to the cities. So I would see that rather than the bottle is empty, I'll say it is half filled, and there are opportunities in a smallholder farming system, but the challenge is to find the niche where they can fit in.
What about the livestock population?
Livestock population is increasing. Livestock population is increasing. In Nepal, we have buffalo population growing up despite this problem, and we looked at carefully why livestock population is increasing. Because when farmers make decision in terms of their family running, first thing comes in their mind, I need goat for my festival, I need money to support my children, I need buffalo for milk, and I need cows or ox for field work. So, but it is not in their consideration at the moment how much forest resources do I have, how much water resources do I have, what is the carrying capacity of this landscape. They are more concerned about their family, which is, we cannot blame. As a result, the population, the stocking rate is going up, and there is a pressure in the watershed because increasing population, animal population, declining resource base, declining family labor, that's where it is now, right now.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know if there was a continuation of like the vaccination programs and monitoring, and if you've seen more progress or if that was just kind of a one-time thing.
That's a very good question, and we are very aware of that. We connected our program to Department of Livestock and District Livestock Office. We got the vaccine from them, we got the people from them, and they work with the community. So we basically made a neat network of community and the government offices there.
Okay, so they're continuing.
They are continuing that, or they go find out a way because they know without vaccination their goats will die.
Yeah, so now they're really into it.
Yeah, like that lady said there, they are happy. They were really happy because they're, in fact, I didn't tell you the data. From 22% goats mortality rate, when we were in the watershed next year, it has come down to 6 or 7% mortality rate. It's just PPR that kills the goats.
It doesn't have an effect on people at all? I mean, aside from the, effects of the goats not living, but the bacteria doesn't get into people?
Zoonotics, the ORF is a zoonotics disease. PPR, I'm not sure about that, okay? But I think the concerns are there now with the emerging diseases and zoonotics, what we call them, transmitting to the human being. That is a concern now.
It was very insightful talk. And I have one question about one of the plot, actually. I don't know if you can go back.
Okay.
The one that has precipitation and discharge. And I think the data is from 1985 to 2010 or so. And it's very interesting, in like 2000, from 95 to 2000 or so, looks like the precipitation was high, discharge was high, and it looks pretty systematic to me. I wonder if you have any explanation for that.
Well, we thought of this is a cyclic nature like this. So from 1985 to 2000, up to that point, the precipitation range, let's say above 1,500, 1,800 millimeter per year. But from 2000 onwards, or from to this end, it went clearly, very, very sharply. So from 2000 to 2009 or 10, we got the minimum of 851 millimeter or so. So there might be, what we feel is, based on this data, probably the impacts started coming after 2000 very heavily as opposed to before 2000. And the same thing shows here in the discharge data also in Thulokhola. You see more distribution after, let's say 2000 and nearly around 2005, 2010, you see many, many points there below the average. Please.
Hi, Zina Grechny from the Pacific Research Program here. Thank you so much for your talk and for visiting. I was wondering, it sounds like soil fertility is a huge issue there, and I was wondering if you tried to tease out if there was any climate change signal in there, or are there other reasons for soil fertility that can be separated from the climate change signal, like overcrowding or unsustainable development?
That's a great question. As a soil scientist, I can answer that question very nicely, I guess. The problem is soil and water conservation. The soil erosion and lack of implementation of soil and water conservation measures, especially in the non-irrigated land, is a major, major problem. So even before climate change, that soil degradation process was there for sure. But climate change might have exacerbated it because of those high intensity rain. Even if there are few rain, those high intensity rain followed by drought season will expedite the soil erosion rate tremendously.
We're seeing that here in Hawaii too.
Yeah, and everywhere. The climate change signals on soil health definitely are more than we generally think. They are heavy, heavy there. Thank you.
I have two comments based more on, my 30, 40 years experience, so sort of observational. One, when I started working in Nepal in 73, there were no outhouses, period. Everybody used the bush. I used the bush. My parents used the bushes. Today, everybody has an outhouse. Almost everybody has an outhouse. Mm-hmm. So that has really affected, I think, fecal coliform in the water.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean, I do believe your data on goats and the parasites that the animals are exposed to. I'm sure there's still plenty out there, but it's a lot less than it used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be you boil your water, you iodized your water, you filtered your water, and you still took worm pills once a month.
Oh, really?
Things have cleaned up a lot in Nepal. And
okay.
I think that. Two, I'm going to disagree a little bit with you on the animal numbers. When I did dissertation work in 80, Brahmins kept cows even if they had no purpose. Today, all those cows are gone. They only keep lactating cows, one or two, as your numbers showed, and one or two lactating buffalo. And they're even beginning to go to hand plows, handheld plows. Goats are the other thing. Whereas there were very few goats 30 years ago, today there are many, many goats. So the whole economic structure of animals.
When I say the number of animals, I count goats also.
Yeah.
It's a buffalo, cows, and goats. So the buffaloes, one or two, they have been like in the past, there might have been little more. Cows, there is attraction now to put kind of an improved Jersey cows, at least one or two. And of course the goats, they have been the choice of the farmers, and almost 8 million population of goats now there across in the country. So as families split, they got to have some animals in their hand, and what animals they go when a family splits. Well, let's go for goat. It becomes very handy cash to support school children, and also goat. It's a festival. For the saying, the festival they keep it. So I think you are right. The population, although national population of buffalo is also increasing, I think largely it is because the number of households have increased. And as in the past we had joint family system, but now it is more and more split family. So more number of households mean they have to have some animals. As a result, the population has increased. Despite the productivity of animals hasn't gone up. So although the emphasis should be on to enhance the productivity of animal rather than the number of animals, it has not triggered in the community that the productivity has to be increased, not the number, but that's still other way around.
Well,
That's what I was going at too.
No, but I hear a very different story when I'm there. Farmers are saying, and this was 2010, 2011, everything was being sold to India. All the cows and the buffalo were being sold to India because there was a meat market in India. Now, as of last year, of course, the Indian government closed that down and they're having riots over it.
Right.
But all the animals that could walk were being sold. Today, I don't know.
Well, I think there is another trend coming up now. The young generation, those who had gone abroad for the work, coming back from Malaysia, coming back from Arabian countries, and then doing some commercial agriculture. And the major thing for them is like goat farming. Or chickens. And goat has so much of, attraction because high value. Everybody loves goat meat. And then there is market in Kathmandu, never satisfying market in the sense. So there are these trends coming up.
Well, your work on the goats is fascinating, and your disease and your injection. I think that's exactly what we need.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we try to grasp this whole system and then try our best to understand its ingredients within that short time.
$80,000?
$80,000, here we go. But we are happy because it gives us such a nice fine data set which are already published, and then at least that micro watershed that we dealt with becomes a kind of an example for anthropologists, sociologists, economists, agriculturists, soil scientists, animal scientists. Hey, let's work together with the community and come up with a plan for climate change adaptation.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.